In this video, I'm going to be attempting to create this flip animation completely from scratch for the first time ever, and I can already tell you it's going to be pretty difficult, but that's great because it means you're going to really get to see how I debug and go about solving these complex problems, and this one's going to be a lot of CSS and JavaScript, which is going to be great. With that said, let's get started. Welcome back to Web Dev Simplified. My name is Kyle, and my job is to simplify the web for you so you can start building your dream project sooner. And today we're going to be attempting to create this countdown timer by Dorian Camilleri. I'm going to have it linked down in the description below. Apologies for butchering your name if you are Dorian. So with that said, I got an index.html page completely blank. It's just opened up on the right hand side here. And this countdown timer is going to be great because it's going to be very depressing watching the time tick down as I continue to struggle to solve this. Because I can already tell this is going to be a pretty difficult problem, at least I think so. It looks deceivingly easy, but I think it's going to be more complex. So I think the first step that I want to do in trying to solve this problem is to tackle the CSS portion and the CSS animation before I move on to the complex portion of the JavaScript section. And the reason for that is because if I try to get everything working with JavaScript and CSS at the same time, I have two places where I can mess up, while if I focus on just one of them at a time, it makes it easier for me to be able to tackle one without the problems of the other intercepting. So let's just create a styles.css here, and we're going to link that up. So make sure we link that style sheet. And now what I want to do in here is I'll just come in and I'll do my before and after selector. So we'll say after, before, and I just want to change my box sizing to border box just to make sizing things a little easier. And I think the first thing that I want to do is to kind of create this section. So we're going to have like a figure or like a, I don't even know what to call it, like a number section, like we'll just call it like a flip card. There we go. And inside the flip card, we're going to have a top section, and then we're going to have a bottom section. I think that's because we have two separate colors going on here. And then we're going to have essentially our overall number. For now, I'm just going to do like top, bottom, and we're going to put the same number in them. We're just going to say, let's do like a complicated number of some form. I'll do like 4. There we go. So now we look a 4 on the top and a 4 on the bottom. That's really good. Now we want to select our flip card. We want to get our top section. And we're going to get our bottom section. And I'm going to come over here. And what I want to do in order to get these styles is I'm just going to right click inspect this. And what we can do is we can say that I just want to get that top section here. And I can try to look for that color. And there it is right there. That's the border actually. Where is the color? Looks like the color is not applied there. Maybe it's applied here. There we go. Background color is this. So the top has this background color. We already know the background color for the bottom is white, at least in this example. And the body has its own background color. We can inspect to get that. It's going to be on the body most likely. There we go. Copy that background color over. So already, there we go. We have a little bit better to work with section. We can kind of see that grayed out section at the top, the white section, and then that section. And finally, let's get the color for our text here. Let's see, there's a number right there. It's inside a span, probably has the color on it. There we go. Okay. We're just gonna put that on our body because everything on our page is gonna have the same color. There we go. That looks really good. And we can give it just a basic font. We'll just say like font family is Arial. There we go. Just looks a little bit better than the default. And now we have to figure out how to style this. So for our width, I wonder if we want to hard code that. Probably not. We could say here like display is going to be, probably want to do flex. We'll do like an inline flex. Let's see if that gives me the effect I want. There we go. And we want to change the flex direction to column. Now they're stacked on top of each other. And we want to give it some padding. So let's say padding of like 0.25 rem. I guess no, we don't want the padding on here. We want it on our sections for top and bottom. So let's get a selector for both top and bottom. We know that we want the height of these to be 50%. We want it to be 50% of our flip card itself, I guess. Let me think about the best way to do this. Because we want it to be halved in size. Trying to think. I guess we could set the height to like 0.5 em. And then we can make sure we set the line height to 1. That should give us exactly half the height on both of them, which I think is what we want. And then we can change the bottom to be align items flex end, I believe. Maybe it's flex start. Maybe we want justify actually. Justify content flex end, flex start. We'll come back to that in a little bit, exactly what we want. Okay, so we have our height, which is essentially 50%. We want to give it some padding. So we'll say like padding is 0.5 EM. That's pretty large, 0.25 EM. Sure, that looks pretty good. Still trying to figure out our height here. We need to incorporate, let's do like 1 EM. And then we can change this to a justify content flex start. And let's change our height to 2 EM to kind of see what we got working on. So flex end, flex start. That's not changing anything. So let's do the align items. Flex start, flex end. Let me see what I'm doing wrong here. We have that class bottom being applied. So if I change the justify content to flex end, it should push it to the bottom. Let's inspect here and see. We have our div, justify content, flex end. Is it something to do with like align items? Let's do both of them at flex end. Maybe we need to, I'm trying to think. We want to move our text. I guess we could just do like a vertical align. Oh, I know the issue. We would need to make this also a display of flex in order to get the justify and align items to work. We could also, I think, just change our vertical align to bottom. And that would put our text at the bottom, but it doesn't. Already we're running into lots of issues. Vertical line, middle, none of these are doing anything. Let's not worry about that right now. So we change this back to 0.5 EM. That's showing half of our text, but our backgrounds are not big enough. Because we want to incorporate our padding. So this would be 1 EM, I believe. Or maybe it'd be 0.75 EM. There we go. That's exactly half. We have like the top half of our 4 up here, you can see. And then we can get the bottom half of our other 4, but we essentially just need to move our 4 up by half its height. I'm trying to think of the best way to do that. I thought it was going to be with that like vertical line trick or the flex end. Let's change this to display flex and justify content, or sorry, align items, flex end. There we go, that moved it up. So now we have one coherent 4, and it's technically 2 separate 4s, because if I, for example, comment out the bottom section here, you can see we just have our top 4, and if we change this to like overflow hidden, it'll be a little bit easier to see what I'm talking about. So now we have our top 4 and our bottom 4. As you can see, when I highlight those 2 sections, we're getting each one individually. And then we have our actual card. Over here, the corners are rounded a little bit, so let's give it a little bit of rounding on our top and bottom. This is going to say border radius, and we want that to be on like the border top right radius, 0.5 EM. And let's do top left. And then for our bottom, we're going to do the same thing, but for our bottom left and right. And that's way too big, so we'll try like 0.25 EM. Still too big, so we'll do 0.1. Whoops, 1. There we go. Looks a little bit better. I also think I want to change my font size. So we'll just come in here, we'll say font size is 1.25 REM. Maybe like 1.15 REM. Just a little bit bigger so it's easier to work with. And I think we have like a box shadow on this. So I'll just come in here with a really simple box shadow. Box shadow 0, 0. Looks like it's actually offset a little bit with like 2 pixels or something. I always forget like blur and spread. So I think I don't want any spread. 0, 0, 0, and like 0.1. Let's see what that looks like. Maybe do like 0.5 so we can really see what the box shadow looks like. For some reason we have our corners now showing up. I believe that's because of this box shadow being on our flip card. So let's say overflow hidden here. No, that doesn't get rid of it. What if we change this to 0 and this to 5 pixels? No, okay, that doesn't work. Let me just inspect this real quick. So we have our flip card. We can look at our box shadow. We can kind of define all these different properties. So first I want to change this to just be 100% so we can really see what our box shadow looks like. And then I can try to fix it. So if we increase our blur, yeah, it's giving us like corners back on our box. obviously we don't want. I'm trying to think of the best way to get around that issue. Because the corners, I believe, are coming from our flip card. If we just say border radius 0.1 EM overflowed hidden, we don't even need the overflow hidden. There we go. And our box shadow, we can way decrease that, like 2 pixels. And we want to decrease this to like 0.1, 0.2. Sure, good enough. It doesn't have to be perfect. We'll say this is our box shadow. It's a little bit harsher than their box shadow, but I think it's fine. So there's our flip card section. We also want a line between them, I guess, because they have that. So on our top, we'll just say border, bottom, 1 pixel, solid. And let's see if we can figure out what that color is. We'll inspect here. I'm just going to scroll this up. Border. That doesn't look like it has it defined on it. Back into our elements. Maybe we want the top section. Maybe that'll have the border on the bottom. Not seeing it in here. Border bottom. Okay. They just have it be a mostly transparent black. That's kind of annoying. But I guess we can do that. Let's see if that looks the same. Not quite. It's really large. I think that's because I'm super zoomed in. Yeah, I am super zoomed in on my page. So let me change my font size here to like 5 rem. Whoop, too big. 3 rem. There we go. So now everything is scaling a little bit better. And since we used EMs for pretty much everything, it's going to work just fine. So now we have that line going through the middle to kind of give it the effect of being something that's split into 2 parts. I think that looks really good. So now we need to work on the animation because like if I change my text, it should work just fine. Like if I change this to 5 and 5, yeah, it still works just fine. So now all we need to do is actually make the flip animation itself work. So to do the flip, I think I'm just going to use before and after elements to get that to work. So we can have like a before on our top and a before. We can even just do like a before on our flip card. Let's do our flip card before after. So we'll come way down here. We'll say flip card before. And we're going to do a flip card after. At least I think that's what we're going to do. And the reason I'm doing a different before and a different after is because I think the way that I want this to work is as it flips over, I want the top portion of the flip and the bottom portion of the flip to be 2 different pieces. And the reason that I'm thinking about doing that is because if we had them be one single piece, we would need to have our JavaScript intercept the animation halfway through, change the text, change the background color, and a bunch of other things, and then continue the animation. While if we just make it 2 different animations where the top half flips down halfway so that it's invisible, and then a new piece flips down from the halfway point to the bottom, we don't have to worry about swapping all the values in the middle. We can just make it so that the top half has all the same values till it ends, and the bottom half has all the same values until it ends. And then once the animation of that piece ends, we can just get rid of it from the screen. I think that's what I want to do. Yeah. So we're going to give this like a flipcard.animate, or we'll just say like .flip or something. That'll be our class that we use in order to like give it the flip animation. So let me think of the best way that I want to do this. So we're going to have a content on here, and this content would be like 5 because we're working with the number 5. So the content inside of here would be 5. And height would be 50%. And let's just give it a flip class for now so we can see what we're working with. So we have that section. Oh, it goes inside the card. We need to do position absolute, obviously. So we'll say like position absolute. And our flip card will say position relative. And here we'll say overflow hidden. Background color red, just so we can see it. And we obviously want the width to be 100%, just like that. Text align center. So, okay, the reason that these aren't lining up exactly with each other is because there's padding on the tops and bottoms. Yeah, the padding is right here. Let me think about the best way to do this. I would need to incorporate that padding into our flip card before. So we could say like padding top 0.25 EM, I believe I did. Maybe I did REM. Let's see what I did for padding here. 0.25 EM. Oh, my line height. Whoops. Why can I not do line height? There we go, 1. There we go, that fixed the issue. So now if we give it a background color red, you can see it just covers that top portion, which is exactly what we want. We actually want it to be very similar to our top. We want it to have like almost the same styles as top. Yeah, we can actually have it have exactly these styles. So what we can do is we can say like dot flip card dot flip after. Let's just get all these on a new line, and I want to copy that one more time for the before. And then what I can do inside of here is I can get rid of our line height, get rid of the padding, I can get rid of this height. Keep the content, get rid of the text align, I think. Get rid of the overflow hidden. Yeah, it's still all exactly the same. And if we put that background color red back on there, yeah, that's working exactly as I want it to. Perfect. Okay. So now we need to make it actually flip. And actually, I want to keep the background color of this the same. So this and the flip card after are again going to share styles because I want them to have the exact same everything except for this border. This border is just going to be for the top. That's the only thing the top has specifically to it is the border. And then I can copy this for the before section, which is going to be the bottom. There we go. I guess the before is technically the top. That's the way I did it. So before will be the top, after will be the bottom. So now we have a before section all the way at the top here. It looks like our line disappeared for some reason. Let me, oh, I know what the issue is. Okay, so the reason our line is disappearing is because, yeah, we actually need this border to be on here. There we go, that will keep the line there. So the reason the line was disappearing is that this was a z-index layer above it, and it was covering that 1 pixel. We can keep the line there, though, because it'll just flip with the line. That'll be fine. So now we need to give it an animation. So let's get rid of this flip. No, but we'll keep the flip, yeah, and we'll just give it an animation. Whoops. Animation, and this animation is going to be flip down. There we go. And we'll give it a duration, let's just say like 150 milliseconds. Ease in, out. Now, I don't know if we want it to ease in, out. Maybe we want it to ease in, but not out, because it'll be halfway through the animation when it finishes. Yeah, there we go. And we don't want any delay, and we only want it to do 1 time. I think that's fine. Let's do the keyframes for flip down. At 0%, what we want to do is have it at its normal position. So all we care about is the 100% keyframe. And at 100%, what we want to do is we want to give it a transform where we rotate it in, I believe, the Z direction. We want it to kind of rotate towards us. I think that might be the right direction. I'm not 100% sure. And we'll say 90 degrees. Okay, Z was the wrong way. Let's try the Y direction. That was also the wrong way. There we go, we got X. And I also want to change the transform origin to be the bottom. And let's make this really long so we can see exactly what's going on. So I'll do like 5,000 milliseconds, maybe not that long. We'll do 1 second. So now you can see it flips down to the halfway point, and it takes 1 second in total to do that flip down. So if we made it like 250 milliseconds, it's now going to take 1/4 of a second to flip down to the halfway point. Now what we need to do is the bottom half, which I'm just going to copy all this code because it's going to be very similar. Essentially, everything is exactly the same except for our transform origin is top, and our animation is flip up. I guess we called these the wrong thing. I'll call this flip bottom, and I'll call this flip top, just so it's a little bit easier. Because the way that bottom is going to work is the 0% starts at this rotation. Or I'm sorry, the 100% goes to a rotation of 0 degrees, and we start at a rotation of 90 degrees. So I believe that is exactly what we need to do. The only thing is I need to position this with a bottom of 0. And now let's make it really long. So we'll say like 1 second again. And I'm just going to look at the flip down animation for the bottom. As you can see, we refresh that again. It starts at this halfway point and just flips itself down into place over top of the old number. And they both are going at the same time. So now what we need to do is we'll just change this back to 250 milliseconds. And I want to give it a delay of 250 milliseconds. And I want it to be an ease out instead of ease in. There we go. Now we have one coherent flip that looks like it's one flip, even though it's actually two different elements flipping down. The only thing I would need to do is make the content for our flip after be 6, for example, so that it's going to flip down to the value of 6. And then I need to make it so that these essentially get rid of themselves after the transition is done, which is not going to be too difficult to do, I don't think. Yeah, it shouldn't be too difficult. That's where the JavaScript is going to come in. So let's move on to our JavaScript, because right now I've covered a large portion of the CSS, but I've not tested if it works with JavaScript yet. I've just said, hey, this CSS animation works. Now let's make it work with JavaScript, because I could go ahead and I could finish the countdown by putting all the different minutes, hours, and so on in, but I want to test just the animation to see if I can make it work with JavaScript as is before I actually go through and write a bunch of code for this and then have to change all that code in order to make it work with JavaScript. We'll get rid of the flip class. We'll start our countdown here at 9. There we go. Actually, we can just say like data. No, we'll worry about that later. Let's do the script tag. And inside of here, we can just get our flip card. This is mostly for testing purposes. Equals document dot query selector dot flip card. There we go. So we have our flip card. Take our class list. We can add that class of flip onto it. And if this works, yeah, you can see it's doing the flip. Okay. So now what we can do is let's just have a starting number. We'll just say like const start number equals 9. There we go. So we can say flip card dot children dot for each. So for each child, I just want to change the child dot text content is equal to our start number. There we go. So now we have an actual 9. And adding the flip class didn't do anything for some reason. I wonder if we have an error in our code. Let me see. Console children.forEach. Oh, of course, because we need to convert the children to an actual array because there's no for each method on children. Now, if I save, bunch of errors. Oh, there we go. Okay, now the flip is working as we expect. We just need to make the actual flip numbers work properly. So I'm trying to remember how to select. Okay, so what we could do is we could say flip card dot data set dot current number equals start number, and then we could do the next number is equal to start number minus 1. So then, okay, and this is to set up for our flip, because what I want to do in our CSS is I can come on here and instead of saying content, I could say attr next number. And then I could do the same thing up here for our current number. And now, as long as we set our current number and next number dataset properties, it should hopefully use those numbers. Let me see. Inspect. So if we look at our flip card, we have our current number, which is 9, our next number, which is 8, and I need to make sure that I start these with data in order to get that to work. There we go. And it flipped down to 8 as you saw when it flipped, and then it went back to 9, obviously. So now we need to say like flip card dot transition. Oh, sorry, add event listener. I believe there is one for transition end. And there's also one for transition start. There we go. So when we start our transition, I guess technically this is an animation, not a transition. So we'll say animation. So when we start our animation, what I want to do is I want to change the number on the first child at the top section. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to say const top equals flip card dot query selector dot top. I'm also going to do the same with the bottom, but for bottom. And again, all this is for testing purposes, and then we'll clean up the code once we kind of figure out how it all works. So then I can just say like top dot text content equals the correct number, and same thing with bottom. And then we're setting the current and the next number. That's fine. Let's see what else. Okay, we're adding the class list to flip, and then we're adding an animation. We should probably add these event listeners before we add the class, just in case. So now when the animation starts, what I want to do is I want to take the top.text content. I want to set it equal to our next number, essentially. So our start number -1. And then when the animation ends, I want to do the same thing for our bottom. Now let's see if that works. Obviously we have errors. Let's inspect the page, see what's going on in our console. Syntax error event if our top has already been declared. Const top, bottom. Where do I have top being declared? That is really strange. I wonder if it's like if I just say like, get rid of this line. Okay, it looks like it's part of window, duh. Okay, so I'll say like top half. Do bottom half. And everywhere I have bottom. Oops. There we go. Okay, so it looks like it mostly worked. Our top half text didn't change. Still didn't change. Start number -1. So it looks like maybe there is no animation start. Animation start MDN. Okay, there is an animation start. Oh, but the animation is not starting on our flip card. Oh no, it is starting on our flip card. It's starting on the before and after element though. Let's see if there's a way to do this. Because I want to be able to check, yeah, when the animation triggers. The JS select pseudo element. All jQuery stuff. I don't really care about that. It's right here. Getting the computed style. I guess you probably can't technically get a pseudo element in JavaScript. Really annoying though. But yeah, I don't think it's possible to get a pseudo element in JavaScript. So instead of using pseudo elements, I probably need to flip the top and the bottom section. And then have the pseudo elements stay in place. That's probably the best way to get around this, I think. So instead of adding the animation to our pseudo element like this, we can add it to our top and our bottom, and we can make our pseudo elements stay in place. So, best way to get around that is to just change this to .top, this to .bottom. Oh, no. Yeah. .top, no, that wouldn't. Yeah, that would work. That would work. Yeah, that would work. Okay, so we got the top, the bottom. Okay. And the pseudo elements, we just want them to have the correct content in them. You know, instead of doing pseudo elements, I'm just going to add 2 elements to the page because we're using JavaScript. We can just add elements instead of doing it with pseudo elements. So what we can do is just back this up to where we have the pseudo elements. Yeah, so we can take anywhere we have this after selector. Yeah, anywhere we have after. So let me just select the after here. I think that's all of them. Oops, I got one too many. So after. And what I want to do is I want to add like a new element. So we'll say like .top flip. Actually, I think after was for bottom. So we'll say like bottom flip. And then wherever we have before, we can change this to bottom flip. And now what we can do is we can just add in an element for top and bottom. And I just need to make sure where I do content, I don't actually set content. And instead, I set that in my JavaScript. So I can create 2 new elements. So we'll say like const top flip equals document dot create element, a div. We'll do the same thing with our bottom flip, and we'll say top flip dot classlist dot add top flip. Same thing for bottom. There we go. So now we have those two elements themselves. Now we just need to add them to the page, and they should automatically animate. We don't even need that flip class at all. So we can get rid of this flip class. Get rid of that here. Get rid of it there. Get rid of it there. Get rid of it. Whoops. There. There. Yeah, because we don't even need to add a flip class anymore, because as soon as we add those elements to the page, we should have them animate and then remove themselves from the page when the animation is over. Perfect. Okay. So now what we can do, instead of adding that class list to flip, we can say flip list, flip card dot append, and we want to append our top flip and our bottom flip. And we also probably want to set the text content. So we can say top flipped dot text content equals start number. Yep, that's fine. And our bottom flip will be the start number +1. We don't need the dataset section anymore. And then we can say, hey, when our top flip event listener end, when it starts, yeah, okay. And when our bottom flip ends, yeah, okay. We want to remove it. So we can say bottom flip dot remove. And then we also need to add an event listener for when our top flip finishes. And that's just going to be to remove top flip dot remove. Okay, lots of brokenness just happened, but that's to be expected. So let me get rid of all of the statements here. I want to see what our page looks like. Oops, inspect that again. So we have our flip card, and inside we have our top and our bottom, and then we have our top flip and our bottom flip. It doesn't look like our classes are being applied. Our CSS is being applied. So let's see here. We have bottom flip, which is inside of our flip card. Bottom flip, bottom flip, bottom flip, bottom. Oh, I need some top flips. This should be top flip. This should be top flip. This should be bottom flip. This should be top flip. Okay, that helped a little bit. This should be -1. And now it looks like we have some CSS styles being applied to the wrong thing. So this is bottom flip, top flip. Let me see, which is the one? Let's see, bottom flip. Let me just inspect this real quick to see what's going on. Because our bottom flip looks good, but our top flip does not look so hot. So top flip, it's got no size. Okay, let's look at our bottom flip. Our bottom flip is still on the page. Oh, it's because we're not removing it. Duh. Let's come in here and make sure we remove those. So it did count down by 1, but there's some craziness going on with this bottom flip section. I think we have our bottom flip and our top flip flipped, if that makes sense. Flip top. Yeah, this should be top flip here. And then this should be bottom flip. There we go. That looked a lot better. Now we just need to add this code in and see if that fixes it. There we go. It counted down by 1. We started at 9 and it counted down to 8. That looked really good. If we change our start number to like 5, there we go. That looked really, really good. So now all we need to do is take all of this complicated code and kind of conceptualize that into a function, which I don't think will be that hard. We're just going to create a function called flip. Yeah, we'll just call it flip. And this flip function is going to take in a flip card. I think that's all we need to take in, because from that flip card, we can just copy this code, paste it down, and we can get our top half, our bottom half, create a top flip and create a bottom flip. And we can copy all of this code right here. We need a flip card. And from that flip card, we should just be able to get the current number. And the current number can just come from our top half. So we can just say like const current number, we'll call it start number to be consistent, equals top half dot text content, and we're going to parse that as an integer. There we go. And that should just work. So now we can just call that function. Let's try it. We're just going to say flip with our flip card. And now, since our number in here is 9, When we save, you can see it goes from 9 to 8. And if we wanted to flip twice, we could just come in here and we could flip multiple times. But of course, we need to wait for our animation to finish. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in here just like this. So this will just constantly continue flipping every time our animation ends. So go 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. And eventually it's going to start counting negative, and that's going to be a problem, you know, like this. But it's working. It's working just like we expect. So now all we need to do is actually just hook it up to an actual timer, and then obviously create the rest of our HTML. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the HTML portion first, because that's going to be, I don't think, too complicated. We just need to essentially have 2 sections. This is just going to be like 2 nested Flexbox containers is the way I think about it. We can say like container, and then inside that container, we're going to have a container segment. And inside that container segment, we just have 2 flip cards. Make sure I close off the div, just like that. Let's look over here. We have our 2 flip cards, and then we just need to make sure we space them out properly. Looks like I have some weird CSS stuff going on. Let me see. No, it looks good. Okay. So we're going to do a container segment. So we're going to say display flex gap is going to be 1 rem, 0.5 rem. Sure. We actually probably should do that with em. So we'll say like 0.25 em, 0.15 em. How far apart are they over here? Pretty close. So we'll do like 0.1 em. And then for our actual container themselves, we'll do display flex and we'll do like 0.5 em. Now, if we have 2 segments, if I just copy this, paste, and of course I need to make our font size a little smaller. So we'll come over here, let's say font size 2. There we go. We can fit our entire segment on here. We can change it to like 2.5. There we go. We can fit all 3 segments just barely. Make it a little bit smaller. There we go. So there we go. All 3 of our different flip cards are showing up. They're spaced out relatively similar to over here. We just probably want to have this hours and minutes and seconds section on the top. That should be, again, pretty easy to do. Let's go to our HTML here. So in our container segment, let's see. We're going to have a, we essentially just need another Flexbox container that's going to be vertical. We could have done this with grid, but it's too late at this point. So let's just come in here. We're going to say hours. And I'm using divs for all these things. You could obviously make this more semantic, but it's good enough for now. So we have our hours section. And we're going to make this, we're just going to call this segment. Naming's not the best, but gets the job done. Now what we need to do is we just need to change our font size here to be on the flip card itself. So that way our hours text is smaller. And we can say dot segment is going to have these styles. And our container segment is going to be a flex direction. Man, I cannot type. Flex direction to column. A gap of 0.1 em, probably. We don't want it to be very big. And then we want to have, let me think what else we need to have. Probably a align items center. There we go. That should be all we need. And for some reason, our font size is really small now. Put this back over here. That's fine. And what we can do is we can just hard code our font size for our like title. Segment title. Segment title, font size 1 rem. There we go. I think it looks pretty good. So now we can just copy this down. We have essentially these 2 new classes. So we have hours, minutes, add in a div here. There we go. Do this again. Seconds, indent, copy that, indent. There we go, hours, minutes, seconds. We can, yeah, that looks good. And then we can make our container margin 0 auto, just to center it on the screen. Width 100%. Why is that not centering? Let me just double check here. This should be centering the container on our screen. Oh, we're using Flexbox. We might as well just say, where's that? Here we go. Justify content center. There we go. Since we're using Flexbox, it's way easier to center things. There we go. Okay. So now we have our flip container done. All we need to do is hook it up to an actual timer. And I'm going to go the easiest option, I think. I'm just going to do a set timeout or a set interval of 1 second. Now, set interval is not always the most accurate thing in the entire world, so you may want to do it with an actual date instead, but for all intents and purposes, this is good enough. If you wanted to do it with a date, what you would do is you would set your interval on something smaller, like 250 or like 500 milliseconds, probably like 250. And then what you would, actually, let's just do it with the date. Why not? We'll just do it the better way. So we'll say const start date equals, or we'll say like const count to date equals new date. And this new date, let's just say, what do we want it to be? We'll say, 2022, let's do it as a string, 2022, 0403. We'll do 02. There we go. So now we can say const current date. Actually, the current date will be inside the set interval. So const current date. Actually, you know what? If I change my mind or not. I think I have changed my mind. We might just do it with a set interval. That'll be fine. Okay. And the current date is new date. That's fine. And then we're going to say const time between dates equals count to date minus current date. So let's just console log this to kind of see what we're getting. Console.log time, because I think this is going to be in milliseconds, and we're going to need to convert it to seconds. Yeah, so you can see approximately every second it's counting down. But you'll notice it's not 100% accurate. Otherwise, these milliseconds would be exactly the same. It's like 4-ish milliseconds swing, maybe even up to 10 milliseconds. That's why, again, like I said, set interval is not 100% perfect. We'll do 250, and we will divide this by 1,000. And now we can see the results here, console. There we go. So now you can see it's counting by second. So every time this seconds place changes, that's when we're going to want to update our timer, I believe. Yeah. And we're going to want to set up a ceiling. So we can say math.ceil of that. And we'll call this new time between dates, and we'll have a previous time between dates. Okay, and we'll just call this time between dates. There we go. So then at the very bottom, we'll say previous time between dates equals new, or we just call it time between dates. And then we can say if our previous time between dates is not equal to our time between dates, then that means that we need to update our timer. So we'll say like console.log 1 second passed. Let's see if this works. Console time between dates. Let me see what's going on. Between date. Oh, I got rid of the code for actually calculating this. So it's current date minus count to date divided by 1,000, sealing that. Now let's see, inspect console. Every time a second passes, it's saying 1 second passed. And since we're doing this with dates instead of with a 1 second set interval, so if we did 1 second set interval, like I said, it's off by a couple milliseconds of time, up to like 10 or so milliseconds. With this, we're running it 4 times a second, and only every time a second passes with our actual date objects are we going to do a flip animation. So now we should say like flip all cards. Okay, we get rid of this, get rid of that, get rid of that. And then we need to create a new function called flip all cards. We probably want to pass it in the time between dates. So we could say like time. Yeah, we'll just call it time. That's fine. Just a little bit easier to work with. So flip all cards, time between dates. You can minimize that down. So what I want to do is I want to get the seconds, I want to get the minutes, and I want to get the hours. So I believe the best way to convert to seconds, we can say const seconds equals time modulo 60. This should hopefully give us these seconds. Then to get the minutes, that would be time modulo, let me think. Because if we have like 1,000 seconds, that's what this is going to look like. It'd be like 1,000 seconds. And we divide that by 6. So let's do like 6,000 or 600 divided by 60. That would equal 10 minutes and 0 seconds. So if we moduloed it on, I'm trying to think here. So if we divide by 60, yeah, time divided by 60 modulo 60. That should hopefully give us the minutes. We can do the same thing with hours, but we need to divide it by 3,600. I think this will work, and there's 24 hours. Actually, we don't need to do the modulo because we don't have anything above hours. So let's just do console.log seconds, minutes, hours. Let's see if this is even accurate. So 48 seconds, 59, or about, oh man, what is 60 minutes it's saying essentially? This is, time divided by 60 modulo 60, time divided by 3,600. We want to obviously do like a math dot. Would it be a floor of this? This is something that I'm never that great at because I never want to think it through all the way. Time divided by 60. We want to do another math dot floor. So it's saying 6 seconds, 0 hours, 54 hours, 0 minutes, 6 seconds. It looks like this is technically working kind of as I expect because the seconds are going down by 1. Yeah, that looks like it's working. We have our dates swapped here. That's why we have negative numbers. Yeah, it looks like, and I also have all these flops, so it's a little bit hard to read what's going on. Okay. So it's saying that there are 53 hours, 58 minutes, and 30 seconds until that given date. I think that is probably correct. Let me do a date that's like really close, maybe. So we can say like current date is new date dot asset hours to new date dot get hours plus 1. So this should be exactly 1 hour away. Yeah. Okay, that looks like it worked. We can bring it back to that specific time in the future. And actually, if we want to just make it a 24-hour countdown, we could just add 24 hours. Now it's always going to count down 24 hours in the future, which is what this timer is doing. It counts down by 24 hours, and currently we've spent 31 minutes trying to build this. Okay, yikes. Let's try to do it in less than 45. We've got 15 more minutes to finish this. I think we should easily be able to. So now what we need to do is we need to get each individual flip card for the hours, minutes, and seconds. So I need to give them a selector so I can select which one is which. So this one's going to be data hour. We're going to call this hour 1. I'm trying to think. Yeah, because this is like the tens place. How do I want to do this? So like we can call it data hour tens. But that's probably the easiest. And then down here, we have our data hour ones. I just need to copy this down. This one is going to be for the minutes. And this one is going to be minutes ones. And this one is seconds and seconds ones. So now I can actually select all those individual segments. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So what's the best way to do this? We could say const hours or hour tens equals document dot query selector data hours. What did I call it? Hours tens. Whoops. And then we got the ones. And let's come in here with the minutes. minutes, seconds, seconds. And this should say tens, tens, minutes, seconds, ones, ones, ones. There we go. Now that's all the different selectors that we need. So now we can essentially say that if the 10th digit of the hours is different than the 10th digit of the hours here to do the flip animation. So, and here I think what we want to do is pass new number. And I'll get to why I think we need to do that in just a second here. But anyway, okay, so what we can do is we can say, yeah, we could pass it our flip card and the new number. And in here, we can just do that check immediately. Yeah, I like that. I like that. What we can do is we can just say, we get the top half and the bottom. Yeah, we'll get the top half as the very first thing. And if the new number is equal to top half dot text content parsed as an integer, then we return. Actually, yeah, we can do that. We got this right here. So if our start number is equal to our new number, then return. And the reason I'm doing this is because if we pass in a new number and the new number that we want to change to is the exact same as the current number we're already on, then don't do anything. And then here, anytime I have start number -1, I'm just replacing that with our new number. And that should hopefully do everything we need. So now what I can do is I should just be able to say flip with all of these different selectors here, and that'll just work. So I can just copy this down a bunch of times. So we have our hours ones, 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 minutes, seconds. Don't need any of that code. And then to get our seconds ones place, we can just say seconds modulo 10, I believe. And that'll give us the tens place. And here we can just say seconds divided by 10 math.4. And I can do the exact same thing for minutes and hours. So I can say hours. And this is minutes. Oops, minutes. Minutes, hours, and this should be flooring. So we'll just do the floor here of hours. And minutes. Looks like I have these flops. So the tens is going to be the floor. Yeah, okay. So let me just flop these around. This should say tens, ones, tens, ones. I think this is exactly what I need. And I don't even need this if check. I can just always do the flip because now it'll only flip if the time is different. So let's save. And we obviously have what looks to be a bunch of errors. So let's go to our console. Cannot read properties of null query selector. So that's because our flip card doesn't exist. Data hours, tens, minutes, and seconds. Let me make sure. Hours. There you go. It's counting down one by one. And hopefully when we see this hit a 0, it should go back to 9 and this other one should go to 4. Let's check that. There we go. That's working. The only thing we should probably do is maybe in our HTML, get rid of these default numbers. I'm not really sure if that would make sense. Whoops. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. Let's just see what that looks like. Okay, we definitely don't want that. Let's change it to the actual countdown time. So like 24, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. That didn't quite work. Oh, duh. 22s. This should be 4, 4. Forgot these are all duplicated. And then these should all be 0. So 0. There we go. And after 1 second has passed, it starts doing the flip. One by one. I'm trying to think if there's anything that we're forgetting at all. I think everything is working just fine. And the real reason, the beauty behind why this works is this single if check right here. This if is just saying like, hey, if nothing changed, don't do anything. Otherwise, we're just checking every 250 milliseconds to see if our time has changed. And if it has, then we're going to do the flip. Otherwise, just, hey, don't do anything at all. Now that may have been easier than I expected, but it was still a ton of fun. If you want to see other fun live coding projects, they're going to be linked over here. Some of them are harder, some of them are easier, but they're all great fun overall. With that said, thank you very much for watching and have a good day.